Am I audible to you? Just write in the chat box. Okay. So I am sharing you the today's presentation slides. All of you see this slide. So today is the last class of first unit. So we are going to cover the two topics which are left. So the first topic is input buffering. All of you see these slides on your screen. Just write in the chat box. Okay. Are there any more participants left waiting in the queue? Okay. So let's start with input buffering. Now first we will going to see what is input buffer. So the input buffer is also commonly known as the input area or input block. So when referring to computer memory, the input buffer is the location that holds all incoming information before it continues to the CPU for processing. So first we need to hold that information in the buffer, and that location is called as the input buffer. After that we proceed that information to the CPU for processing. So input buffer can be also used to describe other hardware or software buffers used to store information before it is processed by the CPU. So the input character is thus read from secondary storage, which is the hard disk, but reading in this way from secondary storage is very costly. So hence buffering technique is used. So in order to save some money, we need to use the buffering technique, as reading from the secondary storage is very costly. That's why we are using the buffering technique, and this technique is called as the input buffering technique. Now moving to the next slide. Now this is the input buffering technique. So there are now the situation comes when a lexical analyzer needs to look ahead several characters beyond the lexeme for a token before a match can be announced. As you know that the lexical analyzer task is to scan the input string from left to right and to trace out the tokens in the input string. So basically uh, when the lexical analyzer needs to look ahead several characters beyond the lexeme for a token before a match can be announced, so in that situation we need input input buffering technique. So buffering techniques can be used to reduce overhead required to process the input characters. So this is the main definition of the input buffering. So here I am giving you some examples which we going to study in detail in the next slides. So basically the buffer is divided into two n character halves. So that's why this is called as the two input buffering scheme. Uh, we will going to discuss it in detail in later slides. To ensure that a right lexeme is found, one or more characters have to be looked up beyond the next lexeme. So hence a two buffer scheme is introduced to handle large look aheads safely. So basically look aheads are the characters which the compiler used to trace when scanning the input string from left to right. So if the compiler traces only one character, one forward character, then we can say that only one look ahead is there. And if we going to trace two or three look ahead, then we can say that two or three look aheads are there. So techniques for speeding up the process of lexical analyzer, such as the use of sentinels. This is the scheme which we going to adopt at the end. The sentinel use of sentinel scheme. We are going to discuss later in the slides. To mark the buffer end have been adopted. So we are using this scheme, use of sentinels adopted at the last. So this is the just brief overview of the input buffering. So let's discuss it in detail. So how many participants are there? Only 11. Uh, Other participants are waiting in the queue. Okay. So let us discuss this in detail. So as you can see from the diagram, as you can see, the diagram is showing two pointers. Just like as you study in the when you studied the data structure algorithm, uh, and in there a topic named as the linked list, and in the linked list you have considered the pointers. So in the same way the pointers are there. So here we consider two pointers. First is the begin pointer, and the other is the forward pointer. So as you can see, the lexical analyzer scans the input from left to right, one character at a time. It uses two pointers. First is the begin pointer. This begin pointer is also called as the lexeme pointer. Because this pointer identifies the lexeme. So that's why it is called as the lexeme pointer. So, and the other pointer is forward pointer to keep track of the pointer of the input scanned. So, initially, at the time of start, initially both pointers point to the first character of the input string as shown below. So, here you can see our input string is this int, then space is there, then I comma j colon and so on. This is our input string. So initially both the pointers, the begin pointer and the forward pointer, are pointing to the first character of the input string, which is I. This is the initial position. So let's moving on to the next slide. So after that, after the initial position, you can see that the forward pointer is moving one position to the right. So and the begin pointer is pointing to the same first location. So now the forward pointer is moving to the second character n. After that, the forward pointer is moving to the third character t. So the forward pointer moves ahead to search for the end of the lexeme. So as soon as the blank space is encountered, it indicates end of lexeme. So after t, you can see that here space is there. So the blank space is there. So the forward pointer indicates that the end of lexeme is there. So in the above example, as soon as the forward pointer encounters the blank space, the lexeme int is identified. So here, once the blank space is encountered, we can get that the the previous part, the lexeme is there. So here int is been traced before the blank space is there. So the lexeme int has been identified by the compiler with the use of input buffering method. Are you getting it? initially both the pointers are at the same location, the first character, and after that we are scanning the input character from left to right, so only the forward pointer is moving. So once the blank space is encountered, we trace that the before the blank space, whatever is there, it is treated as lexeme. So here, as you see in the example, int is there before the blank space. So here int has been considered as lexeme. So all of you are getting it? Just write in the chat box. Okay. So moving forward to the next slide. So the forward pointer is moved ahead at wide space. So here you can see as the forward pointer is moved ahead of the blank space. So whatever the lexeme has been encountered, it will treated as the token. So we considered it as the token. So int has been considered as a token. So now, after the blank space, again the two pointers, the begin pointer and the forward pointer, are at the same location. So you can see in the figure that both are pointing towards to the I location. So they both begin pointer and the forward pointer are set to the next token. So a block of data is first read into the buffer and then second by lexical analyzer. So we are using the two methods for using this input buffering scheme. The first is the one buffer scheme and the second is the two buffer scheme. So with the use of these buffer scheme, we are tracing the input from left to right by using the input buffering technique. So moving forward to the next slide, now we are going to discuss one buffer scheme and two buffer scheme one by one. Now one buffer scheme. So in the case of one buffer scheme, only one buffer is used to store the input string. So here you can see only one buffer is used for storing the entire input string. But the problem with this scheme is that if lexeme is very long, then it crosses the buffer boundary. So as only one buffer is there, but if the lexeme length is very long, it can cross the buffer boundary. So to scan rest of the lexeme, the buffer has to be refilled. That makes overwriting the first of the lexeme. So in order to trace the entire string, so we need to refill the buffer again. So the problem of overwriting the lexeme is encountered. So this is the problem which is faced by the one buffer scheme. So in order to solve this problem, we need to develop a scheme known as the two buffer scheme. So moving to the next slide, in which we are going to study the two buffer scheme. So this is the two buffer scheme, which is predominantly used as the input buffer technique. So in this case, initially, as we know that both the begin pointer and forward pointer are pointing to the first character of the first buffer. So here you can see there are two buffers. This is the first buffer and this is the second buffer. So then the forward pointer moves towards right in search of the end of the lexeme. As soon as the blank character is recognized, the string between begin pointer and forward pointer is identified and corresponding to the token. So here we already see that this is encountered as the token. So as you can see, to identify this is the buffer 1, and in the lower part it is the buffer 2. So to identify the boundary of the first buffer, end of buffer character should be placed at the end of the first buffer. Here you can see that here end of the buffer character has been placed in order to identify that the buffer 1 is going to end here. So you can see here I am writing this EOF, like end of file. As you already studied in the C language, in the file handling section, EOF is there to show the end of file. So here also we are going to write the EOF character in order to identify that buffer 1 is end here. So similarly, end of second buffer is also recognized by the end of buffer mark present at the end of the second buffer. Here also you can see that EOF has been written in order to identify that the second buffer is end here. So end of with the use of EOF character, we are going to identify that the buffer end is here. So this is the two buffer scheme. Now some points about two buffer scheme. So when forward pointer encounters first end of file, then one can recognize end of first buffer, and hence filling up the second buffer is started. So after the first buffer is full, then only the second buffer is going to start filling. So in the same way, when the second end of the file is obtained, then it indicates the second buffer is full. So alternatively, this is the very important point. Alternatively, both the buffers can be filled up until end of the input program and a stream of tokens is identified. So if we have a string, a input string which has more length than the length of the buffer, then we need to place the input string one by one. We need to place first in the buffer one, then when the buffer one is full, then we need to place in the buffer two, and after that we need to fill again in the buffer one and then again in the buffer two, and this process goes on until and unless we scan all our input string at the last. So this end of character introduced at the end is called sentinel. So EOF is end of the file is also called as the sentinel character. It has the special name known as the sentinel, which is used to identify the end of the buffer. So these are some of the important points of two buffer scheme. So all of you are getting it. Just write in the chat box. Okay. So moving to the next slide. But this scheme also faces some drawbacks. So this scheme works well most of the time, but the amount of look ahead is limited. As the size of the buffer is limited, so the amount of look ahead is limited. So this limited look ahead may make it was impossible to recognize tokens in situations where the distance that the forward pointers must travel is more than the length of the buffer. So when the length of the string is more than the length of the buffer, we are facing some problem in dealing with this method. For example, if we are writing this, if we have the string as declare argument 1 comma argument 2 up to argument n in pl object 1 program. So in this program, it cannot determine whether the declare is a keyword or an array name until the character that follows the right parenthesis. So it will be very difficult for a compiler to decide whether the declare is a keyword. You can see in the example is there. it is very difficult for the compiler to decide whether declare is a keyword or an array name until it traces all the string till the end of the closing braces. After that, it can recognize. So these are some of the drawbacks of the two buffer scheme. So in order to remove this drawback, uh, we need to use another method which is known as the use of sentinel method. So let us discuss the sentinel method. So you can see that in the previous scheme, the scheme of two buffer scheme, each time when the forward pointer is moved, a check is done to ensure that half of the buffer has not moved off. So if it is done, then the other half must be reloaded. So in the two buffer stream, we have two buffers, and we need to check that the second buffer is only used when the first buffer is full. And in the same way, when the second buffer is full, the pointer then moves to the first buffer, and the process goes on and on. So therefore, the end of the buffer halves require two tests for each advance of the forward pointer. So the two tests which can be done by the two buffer stream are: the test one for end of the buffer. Always we need to check whether the buffer is end, and to determine what character is read. So these are the two tests which are going to perform by the two buffer stream always. So in order to reduce these two tests into one test, we are using the sentinel scheme. So let us discuss how these two tests become one test in the case of sentinels. Now moving to the next slide. So here the usage of sentinels reduces the two tests to one by extending each buffer half to hold a sentinel character at the end. So as you can see that in this example, as you can see that we can also write the end of the character. Here the two buffers are being clubbed into only the one buffer, and in order to distinguish between the one buffer and the second buffer, here we can write the EOF. So it indicates the end of the buffer, end of the first buffer is here, and the end of the second buffer is here. So we can also write the end of the buffer when our string is end before the end of the second buffer. Suppose the buffer length is suppose 20 and our input length is 15. Then 5 places are left blank, and we need to write the end of the buffer here in order to identify that our string going to be end here. So that's why we are much more using the sentinel method, because this with the use of sentinel method it reduces our test to one, and end of the buffer we can write the end of the buffer to in one buffer by distinguishing that both the buffers are combined in only the one buffer. So the sentinel is a special character that cannot be part of the source program. So EOF is a sentinel character. So cannot be part of our source program. So by using the sentinels, we can reduce our test to one. So that's why sentinel method is much more adopted in solving the input buffering problems. So let us see the advantages of this method. So most of the time it performs only one test to see whether forward pointer points to an end of the character. So as we already see that only one buffer is there, and both the first and the second buffer are combined in the same buffer. So only when it reaches the end of the buffer half or EOF, end of the file, it performs more tests. So since n input characters are encountered between end of the files, the average number of tests per input character is very close to 1. So it gives the average, it gives the average number of tests per input character is very close to 1. So it gives the value which is very close to 1. So as you all, we already know that in case of probability, so it, the value lies between 0 and 1. So here, as the value of the average number of tests per input is very close to 1, so that's why we are using this method, and this method is the best method for dealing with input buffering. So all of you understand it, just write in the chat box. Okay, so this is all about input buffering, and only last topic of unit 1 is there which is left, and this topic is phase and pass. So first we will going to discuss the definition of phase and pass. So as we already studied, what are the phases of compiler? There are basically 6 phases of compiler. So a phase of a compiler is a distinguishable stage which takes input from the previous stage, processes and yields output that can be used as input for the next stage. As you already, as we already see in the diagram of the compiler, there are 6 stages or 6 phases in which the output of the one phase is act as the input of the second consecutive phase. So this is the definition of the phase. And the pass is, the definition of pass is, a pass refers to the traversal of a compiler through the entire program. So uh, as we already studied in our first class, there are many types of compiler, like one pass compiler, two pass compiler, and so on, and multi-pass compilers are also there. So basically, a pass refers to the traversal of the compiler through the entire program. So if a compiler traverses the entire program in one pass, then it is called as the one pass compiler. If the compiler traverses the entire program in two pass, then it is called as the two pass compiler. In the same way, if the compiler traverses the entire program in many passes, then it is called as a multi-pass compiler. So this is basically the definition of phase and compiler. Now let us discuss some comparisons between the phase and the pass. So these are some of the differences between phase and the pass. So in the case of phase, of all of you see it clearly, or may I enlarge the slide? All of you see it clearly. If anybody is having some problem, then I can enlarge this slide. Okay, so it's clear. Okay. So as you can see in the phase, um, in the phase column, a phase is used to classify compilers according to the construction, whereas you can see here a phase is used to classify compilers according to the construction. But in the case of pass, a pass is used to classify compilers according to how they operate. So as we already discussed, it can operate in in only one traversal, so it is called single pass. If it can operate in two traversals, then we can call it two pass compiler, and so on. So it basically deals with how the compiler operates. So in the second point, in the case of phase is a logical part of the compilation process. Whereas in the case of parse, a parse is a reading of the file followed by processing of data from file. So basically, in the case of parse, we are just tracing the file, and after that we will going to process that file which we already traced with the use of CPU. Then in the third point, in the case of phase, there are two main categories of phases. So first is analysis phase and the second is synthesis phase. So in these main categories of analysis and synthesis phase, it is divided into 6 phases. We will divide it the 6 phases of compiler. As we already studied that there are 6 phases: lexical phase, syntax phase, semantic analysis phase, intermediate code generation phase, then the code optimization phase, and the code generation phase. So these are the these 6 phases of the compiler which you which we already studied, and now you need to remember these 6 phases. So there can be any number of passes from 1 to n. For example, single pass, then the two pass, then the multi pass, etc. In the case of phase, the fourth point is most compilers have at least 2 phases, which are also called as the front end phase and the back end phase. So, which is also termed as the analysis phase and the synthesis phase. But in the case of pass, a pass is a single time the compiler pass through the source code or some other representation of it. So as you already see that if there is a single time, then it is called as a single pass. If it is of many times or multiple times, then it is called as the multiple pass. So this is all about the comparison between the phase and the pass. It can be asked in the exam, although it is not specifically mentioned in your syllabus. Although input buffering is not specifically mentioned, but many a times in your university exams, input buffering and the questions related to input buffering and the question related to pass are was asked many a times in your university exams. So that's all about the first unit. Now, these are the assignment questions which you going to submit in the next week. So there are only 5 questions, assignment questions. All of you clearly see the assignment questions. Just write in the chat box. Okay. So these are the 5 assignment questions, and you need to submit it next Wednesday. Not this week's Wednesday, in the next week's Wednesday, after Rakhi festival. Like I think on 5th of August, you need to submit it. Right, and there will be no class on Wednesday of compiler design. You are given time to complete this assignment questions, and also also the assignment questions of your compiler design lab. I already give the compiler design and lab questions of first unit in our last class, in the notes of our last class. So you need to solve four at least 4 assignment questions. So basically you need to program the program in the C language, the how the tokens are identified, just like the keywords, how the keywords are identified in the C program, how the how identifiers are identified. I already I already give it in your last class notes. So you need to also complete at least 4 programs and these assignment questions till 5th of August. And no class has been done. No class has been scheduled for Wednesday on Wednesday of for compiler design. The time is sufficient for you. Hemu Chaudhary, yes, a separate copy for CD Lab is there. If all of you have the sessional papers, then you can write the CD Lab questions and their answers in the sessional pages. If you have the sessional pages, and if you don't have the sessional pages, then write in the plain sheet. And I am creating the Google your Google Classroom for the compiler design subject, and you need to submit these assignments in the Google Classroom of compiler design subject. So I am writing the last date for submitting. So last date is 5th August. Okay. Is anybody having some problem with the last date? Just write in the chat box if anybody have any problem. So how many participants are there? Only 14. So I am just sharing these slides to your group, and there will be no class on Wednesday, on this Wednesday. And basically on Monday the Rachi festival is there, so our next class will be on 5th of August, and you need to submit the assignments on the Google Classroom. I will going to create the Google Classroom for compiler design subject, and I will give you the code, and you need to submit your assignments in the Google Classroom code for compiler design. So anybody have any questions related to the first unit and the assignments? In the next week we will going to start the second unit. So okay, if nobody have any question, then that's it. The unit 1 is completed, and you need to submit the assignments and at least 4 practicals in your syllabus, which I already sent to you in the last class notes till 5th of August. So thank you very much. So now you can leave this meeting.